Hi, good evening. Our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, and our reporter, Damesh Sheth, are here. And there are 11 days of the window to go. This is the transfer show. On the way this hour, Gary Neville is adamant that Ruben Amorim needs a new goalkeeper. But will he get one? The latest on Manchester United's plans for the rest of the window coming up. We'll get the latest on Eberechi Eze. Jamie Carragher compares the behaviour of the Palace attacker to that of Alexander Isak and Johan Wissa. Plus, new signing Jack Grealish starts on the bench for Everton against Leeds in the opening Monday Night Football of the new season. 1 minute in, breaking news. Kaveh, what have you got?
Bournemouth have completed the signing of Ben Doak from Liverpool. This deal is worth around £25 million and he's signed a 5-year contract. Some more details about this deal. Liverpool have included a buyback option because obviously they think he's such a good player that if he carries on developing the way he has been at Bournemouth, Liverpool in the future will have the option of signing him back. Doak attracted a lot of interest earlier this year from clubs like Crystal Palace and Ipswich Town. This summer, we're being told that clubs like Nottingham Forest and Leeds United, as well as Porto, were interested in signing Doak. And if you add up how much Liverpool have made from selling players this summer, because I know a lot has been made about how much Liverpool have spent, if you add up their sales, it now comes to a guaranteed £206 million. But if you factor in add-ons, it could be £227 million. So somebody at Liverpool doing a very, very good job of selling players as well as buying them.
Yeah, that's often forgotten when we talk about how much clubs are spending. All right, let's talk Manchester United then. Now, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Roy Keane, bloke I saw in the corner shop the other day, all saying United need a new keeper. Are they going to get one?
Easier said than done, Mike. It's going to be difficult to get a deal done to bring a new goalkeeper in at Manchester United with just, well, we're now officially less than 2 weeks left in this transfer window, aren't we?
Is the timing the issue?
It's partly that, but also, does Ruben Amorim want a new goalkeeper? So you've got a situation here. There was talk earlier in this transfer window when there were doubts, major doubts over Andre Onana's future. He then got injured during pre-season. So effectively ruled him out of a move because he was injured. So he was going to be out until the start of the season, people thought. So he wasn't going to get much of a pre-season in. And publicly at least, Ruben Amorim has said that he is backing the 3 goalkeepers that he's got. Andre Onana, Altay Bayindir and Tom Heaton. Now, there was lots of conjecture yesterday when the team was announced for Manchester United's game against Arsenal and the squad was announced. Andre Onana nowhere to be seen. They interviewed Ruben Amorim before the game. Why isn't he there? Well, is he injured? Is he not fit? No, he's fit. So everyone assumed that Andre Onana had been dropped. He played that down later simply by saying, look, he's hardly had any training time, he's hardly had any game time, and that's why he chose Altay Bayindir ahead of him yesterday. Now, if an offer in these last 2 weeks was to come in for Onana that Manchester United maybe couldn't refuse, then there's the possibility that they would try and see if there's a keeper available that they can bring in. But at the moment, it would be very, very difficult because there's been no offers for Andre Onana and there's no sign at this stage that Andre Onana wants to leave Manchester United anyway.
There's quite a good goalkeeper hanging around available. Donnarumma, why don't they just buy him?
Good question. I mean, arguably he's the best goalkeeper in the world at the moment. PSG have made it clear that they are going to sell him in the next 2 weeks. Having said that, even though he's only got a year left on his contract, PSG is still looking for around 40 to 50 million euros. So that is, what, around 40 million pounds. Now, he's also on big wages. The information we have is that Manchester United, Manchester City have not been in contact with his representatives. Now, potentially that could change, as Damesh said. If United were to sell Onana, then potentially maybe they'd pick up the phone and contact Donnarumma's representatives. But even then, it'd be very, very complicated because there's the big transfer fee and there's his big wages as well. And you'd have to convince him, I think in United's case, to move to Manchester United because he wouldn't have any European football. And he's going from the Champions League champions. That wouldn't be a case at City. But of course, City would also need to sell somebody like Ederson. But they've just signed a very, very good goalkeeper as well. So I hear what people are saying about Donnarumma. He's available. Why doesn't somebody go out and sign him? It's not quite as simple as that.
I'm going to use the B word, brinkmanship. It was less than 2 weeks to go. I think PSG and Gianluigi Donnarumma are probably looking at each other and just having a staring contest. Who's going to blink first here? Simply because PSG, on one side of it, know that Gianluigi Donnarumma needs to play because there's a World Cup next summer. Whereas Gianluigi Donnarumma is thinking, I'm not going to rush anywhere until the project is right. And PSG, he knows PSG want to sell him. So the later this goes in the transfer window, could there be a situation where you get into the final few days and there's a situation where PSG think we're not going to get the big transfer fee that we wanted. He's only got a year left on his contract, but if we even loan him for this season or even let him go for free in this transfer window, we actually end up getting rid of the wages as well, because you're looking at 15 to 17 million pounds of a saving that they'll make, rather than the other bit of brinkmanship where they don't do a deal for him. He'll be the number 2 goalkeeper. He won't play, and yet he'll be paid this huge wage.
Where's your gut? What do you think will happen?
I think he'll go. I think a few things still have to happen, though. Particularly, we keep hearing about Manchester City, and there's this interest from Galatasaray in Ederson. Now, if that one wants to come to fruition, there is a chance that Manchester City might approach PSG and Gianluigi Donnarumma's representatives. But as Carve said there hasn't been any approach to his representatives at this stage. That's because the two clubs that we keep talking about, the two Manchester clubs, have still got a full complement of goalkeepers in their department. So until that changes, Donnarumma is not going to go to either of those clubs. But the closer we get to the end of the window, because over the weekend, I think a lot of eyes were on the Manchester City squad as well. And Ederson had a stomach bug. That's why he missed that game. Then you've also got to think about what James Trafford must be thinking. He starts the game, he thinks he's the number 1, and then if they suddenly go for Gianluigi Donnarumma, where does that leave him?
Exactly. All right, let's talk Tottenham. Eza, is he going there?
I think he would only go from Crystal Palace to Tottenham if Crystal Palace sign a replacement. It doesn't make sense for Crystal Palace to sell a player as important as Eberechi Eze unless they have a replacement lined up. They are looking at different options. One of them is Bilal El Khanous at Leicester City. Now, I think he would cost between 25 and 30 million pounds, maybe. They're also looking at Christos Tsolis at Bruges, who spent 3 seasons at Norwich City. I think he would cost the same kind of money. I think if Crystal Palace get a replacement in, then there is a good chance that Eze will end up going to Tottenham. But again, the deal has to be right for Crystal Palace. Steve Parish, you know him, he's a very tough negotiator. Palace, when they sell players, they always make sure that they get a good deal for Crystal Palace, and his release clause has now expired. So Crystal Palace are in a pretty strong position. I think once they get a replacement in, there's a good chance that Eze will leave.
Just on Eze himself, I think he would be open to the move to Tottenham Hotspur. Carve mentioned it there about the release clause. It was 60 plus 8. So Palace can charge whatever they want now for Eberechi Eze. So some might question, why didn't anyone trigger that clause when it was there? Because 60 plus 8 seems like a reasonable price, but we don't know the ins and outs of the conditions of that payment. So some clubs might even consider paying more than what they would have had to have paid in the release clause, but got more favourable payment terms in today's PSR ruling. So I think that's what Tottenham will try and do is try and negotiate more favourable terms. It's clear the player's open to going, but this one could drag on a little bit further because Crystal Palace still want to get into the group stages of the Europa Conference League, and they've got these playoffs to play still.
What happened to Arsenal? I thought Arsenal were in for him.
The thing with Arsenal is this interest came really early in the window. We knew they were keeping an eye on Eberechi Eze's situation. They knew about the release clause, full stop. However, this interest and this keeping an eye on what was happening with Eze was at the same time as there were doubts over the future of Ethan Nwaneri. Now, he'd entered the final year of his contract. There was doubts about whether he was going to sign a new deal. That took quite a while. So while they're trying to negotiate with Nwaneri, they have got other areas of the pitch that they wanted to strengthen, and we saw them strengthen, bringing in 6 players for a combined close to £200 million. Then Nwaneri signs the new contract. They've brought in Madueke, they've brought in Victor Gyökeres, so they've reinforced that forward line. And I guess the keeping an eye on the Eze situation might have just gone right to the background. So where we stand now with regard to Arsenal is, I think the focus now is on player sales, because they're keeping an eye on PSR, but they also got to comply with 2 sets of rules. One for the Premier League, which I think they're fine with, but also keeping an eye on the squad cost ratio with regard to UEFA, because they're in the Champions League. So it's not as simple as, right, let's just go and get someone like Eze or Rodrigo. They need to make sales as well.
OK, so Tottenham in the box seat for Eze then. Contract news from Tottenham as well. What's that today? Look,
good start to the season so far for Tottenham Hotspur. Almost won that Super Cup, didn't they? Started off the Premier League season under Thomas Frank with a 3-0 win against Burnley. And, they're in for the likes of Eze and Savinho, and they've tied down 2 of their key players to long-term contracts. Defender Jed Spence, he signed a new long-term contract. We think it's a 3-year deal. Culmination of a big turnaround for Jed Spence, isn't it?
I was going to say, he was nearly out the door not long ago.
Yeah, he joined in 2022. In the first 2 seasons he was at Tottenham, he had 3 loan spells. It was only last season where he kind of established himself in that team for Tottenham Hotspur. And the other big news, this is one maybe some Tottenham fans were a bit worried about because of the interest in him, is the captain Christian Romero. He signed a 4-year deal. Lots of talk about Atletico Madrid being interested. Tottenham Hotspur didn't entertain any approaches from Atletico Madrid over him. And once Heung-min Son left and he was announced as the new captain of Tottenham Hotspur, I think that is when talks accelerated over this new contract. So Spence and Romero now they're at Tottenham for the long term.
OK, and Nottingham Forest got busy today. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, we've been saying this quite a lot, nearly every day, it seems like. But they have completed the signing of Arno Calomuendo from Rennes. He's agreed a 5-year deal, has the forward. It's a deal worth around £25 million. The 3rd player to join in a matter of days. You'll remember before the Brentford game, they paraded James McAtee and Amari Hutchinson for a combined £67.5 million. Another £25 million on Calomuendo, and I don't think they're done either, because there's still a big interest in the Juventus midfielder Douglas Luiz, once of Aston Villa, of course.
Do you remember when we laughed at Nottingham Forest transfer business? Do you think that laughing stopped now?
I didn't laugh at that.
No, I mean generally about having so many players in the door that they couldn't get them all in the same dressing room.
I thought you meant me personally.
No, relax, Carl. It's all right, you're off the naughty step.
No, you do make a good point, because I remember when they came up, it was very controversial that they signed so many players, but they had a good reason for doing that, because so many of the players who'd helped them come up were out of contract or were on loan deals that had to go. So looking back, they did exactly the right thing. I think it was interesting that their manager last week came out and said, look, we need to sign players. Perhaps what they were doing is waiting for confirmation that they were going to be playing in the Europa League before pressing go on some of these transfers, because they played really well at the weekend as well. And it looks like they're making some really good signings. And Douglas Luiz, they're in advanced talks to get him on loan from Juventus. OK, he's had a bad time at Juventus, but he was really exceptional at Aston Villa. If he can get back to that level of performance, then I think he could be an exceptional signing for them as well. And they can build on the success that they had last season.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk Alexander Isak and Johan Wissa. Carve is going to take us through what could be a really busy end to the window at Chelsea as well. We'll see you in a moment. Hello again. Right, as promised, we're going to talk Alexander Isak. I've said that a few times this window. Will he get his move to Liverpool?
I think the only way he'll get his move is if Newcastle United sign a replacement. And it can't be any old replacement. It's got to be a frontline striker who can play immediately in the Premier League, who can play immediately
Who's out there
in the Champions League.
Who's that?
That's what Newcastle are looking for. I think if they can sign somebody and then Liverpool come back in for Isak and they could do a deal at a valuation that suits both parties, then he could potentially get his move. But otherwise, he's not going to get his move. He's got a contract at Newcastle United, so he would have to be reintegrated into the Newcastle side when the window closes.
Do you see that happening? Could that happen?
I've seen stranger things in football. Newcastle have been very, very strong in their stance that he's their player. He's not going to go on the cheap as they see it, and also that he's not going to go unless they sign a replacement. They haven't been able to sign a replacement yet, and if that situation doesn't change, then I could see him staying.
Well, we know Arne Slot wants another attacker. How long will he wait to get Isak before he says, that's it, we're moving on, we're looking for someone else?
I honestly do not know the answer to that question. That is a question that only Arne Slot and the recruitment team at Liverpool could answer. But you are totally right. He's made it clear in public that he feels that as good as Liverpool are, and they've had another exceptional transfer window again, both with players coming in and players going out, he does feel that they need another attacking player. Obviously, they've got their targets, and it's no secret that Isak is the number one target.
What about Johan Wissa? What's going on there?
It's pretty unsavoury, actually. I mean, with regard to what's going on at Brentford, it seems pretty unsavoury, but it's clear that he is an attacker that Newcastle United are pursuing. We're talking about replacements for Alexander Isak. I don't think Johan Wissa would necessarily be a replacement for Alexander Isak, probably one more for Callum Wilson, because Callum Wilson has left the club as well. There's an expectation that Newcastle United will once again initiate contact with Brentford over this deal. But it's a really, really difficult situation that everyone's in at the moment, because his intention is not to play for Brentford again. He didn't feature over the weekend. Keith Andrews is probably wanting an end to what is now a saga one way or another, and very, very quickly. So that's where we stand at the moment until Brentford are looking for replacements as well. They've got Ouattara, but that was seen as probably one to replace Brian Mbeumo. So they're still looking for attacking reinforcements before they allow Wissa to go. But you just wonder, how far has this gone now? Has it gone to the point where there simply is no return? If you look at Johan Wissa's social media channels today, very, very telling. This was his Instagram page. Now, you'll notice that there's no picture of him anymore. There is no reference in his bio to Brentford Football Club. And all of the pictures that are in his social media channel there, he's deleted all the ones that include Brentford. This is a representation of his stance and his feeling that we've been speaking about the entire transfer window, that his intention is not to play for that club again. And he wants to make that move to Newcastle United. And he wants to make that move because at his age, he feels this is not going to come around again. 28 going on 29, Champions League football, big club like Newcastle United. He knows they want him. He feels that a deal can be done, but he's just very frustrated that it's taking this long for it to be done with 2 weeks to go.
Right, listen up to this, because Jamie Carragher spoke to the Premier League show earlier. He says Alexander Isak and Johan Wissa's behaviour is unacceptable.
Do you think that the clubs looking to sign these players need to consider that behaviour?
They won't, whether we think they should or shouldn't. We know these players are doing that because they think that gives them more chance of getting out of the club and forcing the move. Yeah, you can look at the Crystal Palace lads, they're not going about it in such sort of strong circumstances, but maybe the two that we're talking about maybe get their moves and the Crystal Palace lads don't. I don't know. But no, I think the way these are going about it, I think if I was ever involved in a transfer, and gladly I wasn't, I was delighted to stay at Liverpool, but I'd like to think I'd probably have gone about it that way. I don't think when you've got a club paying your wages, your supporters paying to watch you play, that you should refuse to play or train. I don't think that's acceptable.
Not acceptable, says Jamie, but do the players have a choice?
I mean, obviously, it's not the way to behave, it's not the way to get what you want, but we see this virtually every window. I think looking from the outside in this case, it would appear that these players feel they've been promised something and the clubs are not, keeping to their side of the bargain. I think in Isak's case, he feels that he was promised a new contract and then he didn't get a new contract. And in Wissa's case, I think he feels that he was promised that he could leave and now Brentford are not playing ball. But the bottom line is what Jamie said. You've got a contract with that club. And I think taking on a fan base, you've got to be really, really careful the way you treat the supporters of your club. When you do things like delete or mention of the club you play for, the club who pay your wages, the club whose fans pay your wages, buy shirts with your name on the back, fans who sing your name, and then you go and delete all mention of that club. Or in Isak's case, it would appear he doesn't want to play for that club anymore. I think it's a dangerous game to play. I think Jamie's totally right. Make your point behind closed doors. But in public, you still play and train for the club who pay your wages. And there are different ways of going about getting what you want.
Sure. Isn't there a situation, though, Darmish, where Jamie said, like, Ezra's going about it the right way, he's playing or whatever. Ezra's might have an important European game and he might get injured, right? Whereas the other two have kicked off and they might get their moves. So, dangerous game, yes, but can you understand why the players are doing what they're doing?
We need to be careful as well because we don't know the full story of why these players are supposedly behaving, as Jamie Carragher says, embarrassingly, or he's made his opinion. But does he know everything that's going on behind the scenes at Newcastle? Does he know anything that might have been promised to Alexander Isak? Does he know anything that might have been promised to Johan Wissa? And I'm not saying that that's an excuse to do that, but until we know the full facts, and I'm sure some of these facts will come out in the wash if and when these players get their moves or not. Because there are certain things that might be happening behind the scenes that players might have agreed with clubs and they feel, well, you've said this to me, so why are you going back on your word? So why should I play ball then? Just because I'm under contract? Yes, I'm under contract. But at the end of the day, if it was the other way around, sometimes clubs cannot wait to get rid of a player. Say the player doesn't want to go, but he sometimes can be forced out. It can work both ways. So I think we just need to be a little bit careful before we start labelling, right, this player's like this and this player hasn't kicked off, so he's right and he's wrong. I am not saying that Alexander Isak and Johan Wissa are behaving in the correct manner. All I'm saying is there are certain things that might be happening behind the scenes that we are not privy to that might have made them behave in the way that they are doing.
Absolutely.
I think there's a line that you don't cross. You always turn up for work. If you were very, very unhappy with your boss for whatever reason, and you could have very good reasons and there could be a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of, you would still turn up to work every day because you're professional. That's what you do, and what's going on behind the scenes, you'd keep that behind the scenes. And I think when you bring fan bases into it as well, you just have to be very, very careful because, everybody knows Isak's not going to stay at Newcastle forever. Everybody knows Wissa's not going to stay at Brentford forever. But I think it's just, there's a sort of unwritten rule in football that you train and you play for your club. And if you've got issues, You deal with them face to face with your representatives and with executives at the club. You don't let it become a big media story like this.
You make a good point, because I didn't get my pink puppies in my dressing room or my...
Blue Smarties.
I didn't get them, or the bubble water without any bubbles. Anyway, now Arsenal, of course, began their Premier League campaign with a 1-0 away win at Manchester United yesterday. And there was a debut for Victor Gyökeres. No debut goal, but Clinton Morrison has backed him to be a success under Mikel Arteta and believes that they could win the title this year.
It was a hard game for Victor Gyökeres. I don't think you can judge someone after the 65 minutes that he played. Still a lot to come from him. He's a very good striker. He's got good movement. It was just a frustration afternoon. The Man United fans are on him, but it won't bother him. As I said, you can't judge him after only 65 minutes of football. There's still a lot to come from Victor Gyökeres. And yeah, there'll be a few doubters doubting him, but I think he'll be a success at Arsenal. Arsenal could definitely win it. That was a sign of champions that didn't play well, but still managed to get the 3 points. I'm not saying they're going to win it, because I make Liverpool favourites and Man City are up there. But I do think Arsenal will be in the reckoning. It's a mistake from the goalkeeper, poor mistake. But Arsenal didn't play good. They weren't good on the ball. But do they care? They've got a lot of people, and their record at Old Trafford hasn't been good. A lot of people go to Old Trafford and they will struggle this season, because Man United look good going forward. But I think Arsenal still have a chance. But they have a very good chance of winning the Premier League. It's only one game. No team hits the ground running, but they've got the 3 points.
Well, we know that Arsenal's focus is on people leaving. So is anyone close to the exit door?
I mean, there's a number that they would listen to offers for. Jakub Kiwior is the latest one that I've been told. He wasn't in the squad at all for Arsenal in that victory over Manchester United at Old Trafford yesterday. Porto, one of a number of European clubs who have shown an interest in Kiwior. They will listen to suitable offers. He's still got 3 years left on his contract. At the moment, I think initial soundings have suggested a gap in valuation between what Porto would be prepared to pay and what Arsenal would want. The other players are open to offers for Alexander Zinchenko, Fabio Vieira, Albert Sambi Lokonga. We know that Fenerbahce have shown an interest in Zinchenko. Fulham's interest in the Arsenal forward Reece Nelson, that remains as well. He wants to make the move by all accounts, and I think all options are on the table, including a loan with an obligation. The winger spent last season on loan at Fulham, but he had that injury that cut short his season almost in half. He didn't play after December. And it should be noted that Nelson, Kiwior, Zinchenko, Vieira, Lokonga, all missing from the Arsenal squad yesterday. So I think they've been given the message, yes, you can go. Arsenal are now just waiting for the offers that would be right for both them and the club.
So if some or all of them go, will Arsenal go back into the market?
I mean, they've done big business in this transfer window already. We do know that the focus is going to be on allowing players to leave, providing the deals are right. I think they just want to be in a position that if something incredible comes up, they want to be in a position where actually we might be able to do this. So you can never say never. At the moment, though, the information I'm getting focused totally on sales.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, more from Manchester United, news from Chelsea, plus Leeds, Aston Villa and Sunderland, and much, much more. See you in a bit. Hello again, this is the Transfer Show. We're going to talk Chelsea now. Lots to sort out at Chelsea. What's the latest on Christopher Nkunku?
Bayern Munich are trying to sign him, but on loan. And they have made a bid to sign him on loan. That's been rejected by Chelsea. I think Chelsea feel that if the player is going to leave, it needs to be on a permanent deal this summer. He's still got, I think, 3 or 4 years left on his contract. He has had injury problems at Chelsea since his big money move. But for my money, I thought he looked really, really sharp when he played in the Club World Cup. And Chelsea is still asking for around 50 million euros for him, which is around 43 million pounds. But we're getting to the stage of the transfer window where people are trying to get players on the cheap. You know, I'm not saying that's what Bayern Munich are definitely trying to do, but why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
When you know that a club wants to move a player on, you're not going to pay over the odds. You are going to try your luck a little bit.
And
I think that's what Bayern Munich are doing. Remains to be seen whether they come back with an offer, loan plus an obligation, or a permanent offer that's more acceptable to Chelsea. Interestingly, his agent, I think, is the one and only Penny Zahavi, who is, I think, the original super agent or one of the original super agents. And he is normally very, very good at, getting good big deals for his clients. And I actually think if Nkunku doesn't go to Bayern Munich, wherever he goes, I think if he stays fit, he could be a really, really good signing for somebody because he looked super sharp in America last month.
So you said we're at that stage where people are trying to get players on the cheap. Is that what Chelsea are doing with Garnacho and Xavi Simons?
I think I wouldn't use those words, but I think you're completely right. Well, with Garnacho certainly, because they know that the player is going to leave Manchester United. They know that United value him still at around £50 million, although I think Chelsea feel that United's valuation is lower than that. And I think Chelsea are prepared to make him a Chelsea player, which I think is what he wants, but it's not going to be anywhere near £50 million. And I think Chelsea are hoping that the closer you get to the deadline, the more likely it is that United will let him go for something that is closer to Chelsea's valuation, which I think is probably around 30 million, maybe even less than 30 million pounds. Xavi Simons, again, I think he's a player Chelsea definitely want. I think they value him at around 50 million euros, maybe just a little bit more than 50 million euros. So maybe they'll have to increase that. But again, that's only going to happen if players leave Chelsea, because Chelsea have agreed this settlement with UEFA, which means that they really have to balance their transfer spending this summer.
Dharmesh, we've spoken about Garnacho all window. Is anybody else interested in him, or is it just Chelsea?
It feels like it's just Chelsea, but I mean, Carve's mentioned this throughout the window as well. It seems to be a two-way thing. Chelsea want Garnacho, and it feels like Garnacho's only destination that he wants to go to is Chelsea. There might be clubs in Europe who could be interested. And in a way, Manchester United might prefer to sell to a non-Premier League rival, but by all accounts, he wants to stay in the Premier League. But then the way that this whole sale and potential sale is working out, it's all dependent on, as Carve mentions, sales at Chelsea, and then how long those are going to take before they can actually go and try and do business with United. And the later it goes, I don't know whether that's going to work in United's favour, because as much as they will say £50 million is our valuation, they've made it clear they don't want him at the club anymore. But if you're Chelsea, why would you pay that much? And they will try, and they feel that they can get him for less than £50 million. It's going to be interesting to see how this one materialises. No formal offer yet, but I think United are expecting one.
Neither of those are centre-backs. We know the head coach wants a centre-back. Any chance he'll get one?
At the moment, no. I think Enzo Maresca obviously came out in public and said that in an ideal world, he wants another centre-back as cover for Levi Colwill. I think Chelsea's feeling is that they have a very, very strong squad. They feel that they have internal solutions in their squad. They want to give some of those up-and-coming players a chance to play in the first team. We saw Josh Ashampong play yesterday against Crystal Palace. I thought he played very, very well indeed. And also, there are not the centre-backs of the standard that Chelsea require available in the transfer market at the moment. Don't forget, they also signed Jorel Hato from Ajax, centre-back, who can also play as a left-back. They also signed Mamadou Sarr, who's gone out on loan. I think he's gone to Strasbourg. He's somebody who's got a big, big future. So I hear what Enzo Maresca is saying. Of course, managers, head coaches, they want as much as they can get. But I feel it's not going to happen at Chelsea unless Chelsea sell in the next 2 weeks a senior centre-back, a first-team centre-back. I'm not talking about players who play in their so-called bomb squad. Unless they sell a senior centre-back, if that happens, then I think maybe there's a chance they would sign a replacement centre-back. If that doesn't happen, then they're going to stick with what they got because they think what they have got is very, very good.
All right, so we know Man United want to sell Garnacho. What about the others we know are in the so-called bomb squad? Sancho, is he off?
I mean, this one rumbles on. And with less than 2 weeks to go, he's still a Manchester United player. That Roma had made a bid worth around £20 million for him. I think Manchester United were pretty happy with that. Sancho spoke to Roma as well. But as it stands, and as of this afternoon, he's unlikely to join AS Roma. He's decided maybe he wants to explore other options. I'm told that it's not to do with personal terms. This is just a personal decision from Jadon Sancho. A number of other clubs remain interested in him. I think Borussia Dortmund, who he's played for on 2 different occasions, are keeping an eye on his situation. However, in the last hour or so, our colleagues at Sky in Italy are reporting that even though it's unlikely he would go to Roma at this stage, the Roma head coach, Gianpiero Gasperini, absolutely loves Sancho. He's the one driving a possible transfer of this deal. And they haven't given up. They still feel that they might be able to persuade him, however unlikely it looks at this stage. But you never know. With only a couple of weeks left, what else can materialise for Sancho? Whether he ends up staying at Manchester United again and then going in a January window or again next summer. You also got to remember Besiktas were interested. We don't think Sancho is wanting to go to Turkey at this stage of his career. However, our window shuts September the 1st. The Turkish window shuts on September the 12th. So is there a possibility that later on in the window that one becomes live again? I don't know. But Besiktas, of course, managed by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who managed Sancho at United.
What about Rasmus Højlund?
Right, so at the moment he remains open to a move to AC Milan. However, it's understood at this stage he would prefer a permanent move if he was to leave Manchester United. That's because Milan want to do a loan with an option. United, like Rasmus Højlund, want to do a permanent deal or at least have a permanent element attached to any deal that they do. Significantly, he was left out of the squad altogether against Arsenal yesterday. Having said that, when Ruben Amorim was asked a question about Rasmus Højlund, he's got to be careful what he says. Even though we are saying, yes, he's out of the club, he's been given the message, he's got no future there. When he was asked the question, he actually said, look, he's got to fight for his place. We'll see what's going to happen. Rasmus has the same characteristics as Benjamin Sesko, so sometimes we need to choose. It can't be ruled out that he stays because of the length of time that's left in this transfer window. And also Sky in Italy are just reporting in the last few minutes that Romelu Lukaku, who's suffered a bit of an injury at Napoli, they're still trying to find out how long he's going to be out for. They are actually looking at Rasmus Højlund as well as a potential replacement for Lukaku. So the interest is there in him. It's just whether he gets the deal that one, Manchester United are pleased with, but also Rasmus Højlund is pleased with as well.
OK, right, now, plenty to come in the last part of the transfer show, including another signing at Sunderland and news from Leeds and Fulham as well. We'll see you in a bit. Last part of transfer show already. Let's talk Fulham. Trying to get a forward. Are they going to get one?
They're trying. They're expected to resume talks with Shakhtar Donetsk over your favourite player, Kevin,
Love
the
Kev.
Brazilian forward. However, they've got a price in mind. They'll be very disciplined in their approach. They've seen 2 bids rejected already in this window, but I don't think we've heard the last of Kevin in this window.
No, I hope not. Muniz, does he stay or does he go?
So, if Fulham have their way, he stays. They've made it clear to the player they want him to remain at Craven Cottage. Atalanta, though, continue to push to try and get a deal over the line for Rodrigo Muniz. Muniz is understood to want to make the move. Easy to see why Atalanta can offer him Champions League football. Fulham so far have rejected bids from Atalanta and they're not welcoming them at all. However, he's entered the final year of his contract. There is an option, significantly, for Fulham to extend that for a further 12 months. And we keep talking about the theme of the transfer show, and this window is about players' behaviour when they want a move. Well, Rodrigo Muniz was on the bench for Fulham So he hasn't really agitated that much to Fulham because Marco Silva feels he can play him, comes off the bench, scores in stoppage time to save a point for Fulham. And Marco Silva was full of praise for Rodrigo Muniz because he knows that his head has been turned and he does want to go. Fulham want to keep him. Let's see how that one transpires.
Sunderland, busy again, another signing. Who is it this time?
Well, I think they're trying to sign John Lukumi, the Bologna and Colombia centre-back. The player, I think, would like to play in the Premier League. He did have a release clause, which was, I think, around 25 million euros, which is now expired. Bologna signed him from Genk for around 8 million euros, so they will make a big profit on him. He could be a player who could be on his way to Sunderland, but of course they need to agree a fee with Bologna.
And you've got news on Leon Bailey at Aston Villa.
Yeah, Leon Bailey, this looks like a good move for him. He's moving on loan to Roma. Our colleague at Sky in Italy, Gianluca Di Marzio, says that he's going to be flying to Rome to have his medical. And according to Gianluca, Roma will be paying a €2 million loan fee, and they will have an option to sign him permanently for around 19 million euros, which is about 17 million pounds.
OK. Leeds in action in the Monday Night Football, but are they busy in the transfer market?
They certainly are. They're in advanced talks with AC Milan over the signing of Noah Okafor. Fee under discussion for the forward. He can play across the whole of the front line. It's £13 million. I think Leeds are pretty optimistic because they're getting encouragement from the player that he wants to join. Sky in Italy are reporting that Milan are waiting to hear back about the severity of Rafa Leao's injury before making a final decision, because if it's pretty bad, they might need to keep Okafor at Milan. Leao was forced off in the Coppa Italia win over Bari on Sunday. Okafor actually was on the bench. He came on for the last 9 minutes. So still seems to be part of the plans there, but it's going to depend on what happens with Leao, I think.
What do you make of this window so far? We've obviously had two windows in this window, the early one and the second one.
Feels like 8.
It does. Do you feel that's worked in favour of the big clubs, who've got, a lot of them have got their, like Manchester City, for instance, got their business done early, got their players in, they work with them, and then look magnificent at the weekend?
I think obviously Premier League clubs have spent a lot of money. It's really noticeable how many players the big clubs have signed, and on paper they all look like really good signings. I mean, we were just talking about Manchester City's performance at the weekend. Even watching them in America this summer, the way their players have already settled in, some brilliant signings, you would have to say. What Liverpool have done, what Manchester United have done, what Arsenal have done, what Chelsea have done. I think what's worrying is the gap is getting bigger and bigger between the Premier League and the other big European leagues, because these other leagues just cannot compete at all. A club as big as Roma, you know, what are they doing this summer? OK, they've done some good business, but they're trying to get Jadon Sancho on loan. They're signing Leon Bailey on loan. So for the big European leagues, they are just looking in awe at what happens in the Premier League.
Yeah, indeed. All right, that's just about it from the transfer show today. Remember, Monday Night Football is back. What a game this is. Leeds against Everton. Have you missed us, Leeds? Yes, we have. Well, they've got 8 new signings. Everton have got 8 new faces. That one will be interesting. That's just about the kick-off over on Sky Sports Premier League. But stay with us on Sky Sports News, because we are talking all sport. And, of course, we are talking Alexander Isak. Will he stay or will he go? More on that next. See you in a moment.